Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was the magical childhood dream of millions. But behind that fairy tale palette lies an ending far more chilling than expected. Some died in loneliness, some faded into depression, some were remembered only as an unnamed Oompa Loompa. Who has passed away? And what did they leave behind for the world? Let's uncover the truth behind the golden ticket. Let's dive in. Christopher Lee as Dr. Wilbur Wonka. Christopher Lee played Dr. Wilbur Wonka, the hauntingly cold father in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, when he was 83 years old. Though his screen time was brief, he left a deep scar in viewers' minds, like a childhood wound that never heals. Born on May 27, 1922 in London, Lee's life contained darker chapters than any film he ever starred in. He was a real-life spy during World War II, working alongside special forces against the Nazis, and witnessed comrades die with their final screams. But war trauma was nothing compared to the artistic tragedy that followed him for 60 years, being typecast by Hollywood as a villain simply because he looked too frightening. He once said, "I can recite poetry, I can sing opera, but they only see Dracula." The piercing gaze and deep, shadowed voice that once served him in war had become an artistic prison with no escape. He was cast in 7 villain roles in a single year and once broke down in tears after filming when a director told him, "Your eyes are scarier than the script." In his later years, Lee turned to metal music to scream the things I wasn't allowed to say on screen. It wasn't a passion, it was defiance. Christopher Lee passed away on June 7, 2015, at the age of 93 due to heart failure and respiratory problems. His estimated net worth was around $25 million, but his true legacy is priceless. The voice that still echoes through the fantasy world, and the villains who chilled the world to its core, even though he spent his life wishing to play just one ordinary man, but was never chosen. Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. Gene Wilder, who portrayed Willy Wonka in the classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, brought to life a mesmerizing and mysterious version of Wonka at the age of 38. The film, with its dreamlike colors and life lessons hidden behind each candy, became a generational icon, and Gene Wilder, with his distant eyes and half-real, half-imagined smile, was its very soul. Born on June 11, 1933 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Gene Wilder, birth name Jerome Silberman, experienced 2 failed marriages before seemingly finding his final happiness with Gilda Radner, a brilliant yet fragile comedienne. They married in 1984, but within 5 years, Gilda was diagnosed with late-stage ovarian cancer. Wilder stayed by her side through every agonizing moment, from chemotherapy to despair, from hope to collapse. She died on May 20, 1989, leaving him in a years-long state of spiritual paralysis. He no longer performed comedy, rarely appeared in public, and once wrote, "Gilda's death didn't just take my wife, it took the light in me." That grief ran too deep to fade, and from that loss, he founded Gilda's Club, a place to ensure others wouldn't have to die alone like she did. On August 28, 2016, Gene Wilder passed away at age 83 from Alzheimer's disease, a diagnosis he had kept secret for the last 3 years of his life. Why? He didn't want children, the same children who once adored him as Willy Wonka, to feel sad seeing the man who guided them through the candy realm fade away. His estimated net worth was around $20 million, but Wilder's real legacy was never in the numbers. It was in what he left behind. Liz Smith as Grandma Georgina. Liz Smith, in the role of Grandma Georgina, the petite but warm-hearted grandmother in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, joined the film at age 84, leaving a deep impression despite having few lines. With her cloudy but gentle eyes, she was the final soft corner in Charlie Bucket's modest home. Born on December 11, 1921, in Lincolnshire, England, Liz Smith's life was a series of silent sorrows that few would imagine behind the gentle smile she wore on screen. Her husband died young, and she raised 2 children alone in poverty. No home, no support, doing everything from secretarial work to babysitting and kitchen help just to afford milk and blankets for her children. At her lowest point, in the winter of 1966, she was evicted for not paying rent and moved into a small, damp room with no heating in the bitter cold of London, where she quietly swallowed her tears so her children wouldn't know their mother had just been cast aside. For more than 40 years, no one invited her to act. It wasn't until she was 50 that a television director accidentally discovered her acting talent in a local community play. It wasn't a fairy tale turning point. It was the result of half a century of being forgotten by the world. Liz Smith passed away on December 24, 2016, Christmas Eve, at the age of 95, a peaceful end to a life spent quietly weathering storms. Her estimated net worth was around $4 million, but her true legacy was a reminder that it's never too late to begin, and that sometimes the smallest supporting roles can touch the hearts of viewers most deeply. Jack Albertson as Grandpa Joe. Jack Albertson played Grandpa Joe, the loving grandfather who accompanied Charlie on his journey through the chocolate factory in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at the age of 64. That role not only captivated young audiences, but turned the image of a poor, elderly man full of magic into a symbol of hope for millions of childhoods. Yet behind that image, Albertson's life was a hidden tragedy. Born on June 16, 1907, he grew up in poverty, working various odd jobs before finding his calling on the stage. But just as he achieved rare success with the Triple Crown of acting, an Oscar, a Tony, and an Emmy, fate struck a devastating blow. In the late 1970s, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. Silently, he began living a double life, performing comedies by day, curling up in pain by night. He kept his illness secret from colleagues and fans alike. In his final scenes in Chico and the Man, he had to suppress the pain because he couldn't stand for more than a few minutes. When he learned the cancer had spread, he told his wife only one thing: "Don't cry. I need to finish acting before I die." And he did. Death became his invisible co-star in his final years, and that spirit turned his passing into a glorious tragedy. Albertson died on November 25, 1981, at the age of 74, after 3 years of silently battling cancer. His estimated net worth was about $5 million, but what remains is the image of Grandpa Joe leaping out of bed, joyful for a golden ticket, even though in real life he no longer had the strength to walk down the stairs. An actor who kept performing until his final breath. Denise Nickerson as Violet Beauregard. Denise Nickerson brought to life Violet Beauregard, the gum-chewing girl who famously turned into a giant blueberry in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, when she was just 14 years old. That vibrant role launched her into the pantheon of childhood movie legends, but Denise's real life was darker and more bitter than any candy in Wonka's factory. Born on April 1, 1957, Denise was once a promising child star, but the spotlight dimmed quickly after her teenage years. She left Hollywood in 1978 and entered a quiet office job, but quiet didn't mean peaceful. In 2018, she suffered a major stroke that left her unable to move and in need of 24/7 care. But the harshest blow came in 2019, when she intentionally overdosed on prescription medication at home. In a moment of utter despair, she fell into a coma, developed pneumonia, suffered repeated seizures, and lost all neurological response. Her family, emotionally and financially drained, made the painful decision to remove life support, following her previously stated wish not to be resuscitated. They even had to launch a GoFundMe campaign just to cover hospital costs. It wasn't just a death. It was the drawn-out collapse of a child who had once made the world laugh. Denise Nickerson passed away on July 10, 2019, at age 62, in the arms of her family. Those who still tried to smile, even knowing Violet would never deflate and return to being human again. Her estimated net worth was only around $500,000, but her story, that of a childhood angel lost in the storm of time, is a haunting reminder that the brightest stage lights can cast the longest shadows. David Kelly as Grandpa Joe. David Kelly, who portrayed Grandpa Joe in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, brought to life a wiry, witty old man filled with energy and affection when he took on the role at age 76. Though he starred alongside a cast of Hollywood heavyweights, it was his radiant smile and warm voice that rekindled the spirit of a golden ticket in the hearts of audiences around the world. Born on July 11, 1929 in Dublin, Ireland, David Kelly took to the stage at the age of 8. But what stands out is not how early he started, but how long he remained in the shadows before being noticed. Throughout the 1950s to the 1970s, he scraped by with unnamed supporting roles, worked as a commercial artist to make ends meet, and raised 3 children in an apartment that shared a single bathroom with 3 other families. Once, he fell off the stage due to a faulty spotlight, broke his hip, and needed 28 stitches. Yet he returned to perform just 2 weeks later. Rejected countless times for not being handsome enough for an older man, he simply smiled and said, "Then I'll be the odd old man, but the one they remember." And he was, uniquely and irreplaceably so. David Kelly passed away on February 12, 2012, at the age of 82 from an undisclosed illness, as if he wanted to keep his final pain private. His estimated net worth was about $3 million, but more importantly, he left behind a simple truth. Be funny, be kind, and live long enough for the world to finally realize you deserve to be seen. Diana Sowell as Mrs. Bucket. At age 41, Diana Sowell played Mrs. Bucket, the gentle, loving mother of Charlie, in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, leaving a lasting impression through the soft lullaby, "Cheer Up, Charlie," and her hopeful, tender gaze. Though it was a supporting role, she helped form the emotional heart of the entire film. Born on June 19, 1930, Diana Sowell was the embodiment of a quiet artist. She never chased fame or sought glamorous lead roles, instead dedicating most of her life to small theater productions and charity work, regularly performing in hospitals for veterans and the elderly. Yet few people knew that, for many years, she faced industry isolation, continually overlooked by producers for being too modest for mainstream cinema. No scandals, no controversies. Diana was forgotten precisely because of her kindness. Her greatest moment came from a single role, and then the spotlight quietly moved on. Afterward, she lived a discreet life, yet there were many nights spent alone beneath dim stage lights, where she still sang "Cheer Up, Charlie" to herself, a way to push back against obscurity. Diana Sowell passed away on October 19, 2018, at the age of 88 from natural causes, peacefully, but also in the quietness of someone who never sought the limelight. Her estimated net worth was only about $1 million, but the role of Mrs. Bucket, a mother without magic, only unconditional love, remains a silent symbol of sacrifice. Leonard Stone as Mr. Beauregard. Leonard Stone played Mr. Beauregard, the boastful father of Violet, in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at the age of 48, delivering the image of an overbearing, ambitious parent, a ruthless mirror of a materialistic society. Born on November 3, 1923, Leonard had a long career with over 120 roles, but behind the stage lights was a prolonged battle with metastatic bone cancer, which slowly consumed his body in silence over many years. When diagnosed, he told no colleagues, delayed no schedules, took no time off. He kept filming through pain that only strong injections could ease. One co-star recalled a day when he collapsed right after a scene, only to get up, smile, and say, "Don't let the director see." It was a kind of endurance bordering on self-destruction, not for glory, but for a belief that the role must always be completed, even if it meant falling apart inside. No one ever heard him complain, but in his journal there was a single line: "If I'm not acting, I'm just a sick man." Leonard Stone passed away on November 2, 2011, just one day before his 88th birthday, due to complications from cancer, in the very home he refused to leave until he could no longer stand. His estimated net worth was around $2 million, but what people remember most is the image of an actor who quietly died on his feet, never once asking for a day off. Brookke Taylor as computer scientist. Brookke Taylor appeared at age 31 in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, as the computer scientist. A small, uncredited role, but one that symbolized a world stepping into the age of technology and a face long associated with British comedy. Born on July 17, 1940, Tim was one of the pillars of British humor, best known for the goodies and "I'm sorry, I haven't a clue." But because he was someone who brought laughter to millions, the tragedy of his final days felt all the more cruel. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the world, Tim was still working, still appearing on radio, still sending emails to friends. But within a matter of days, the virus put him in critical condition. He died alone in an isolation ward, no loved ones beside him, no final goodbye. Fellow comedian Barry Cryer said through tears, "A man who made the whole country laugh had no one there when he took his last breath." That was the true horror of COVID, not just the illness, but death in silence. And for Tim, the cruelest twist was this: he left just when the world needed his laughter the most. Brookke Taylor passed away on April 12, 2020, at the age of 79, due to COVID-19 complications during the UK's national lockdown. His estimated net worth was around $2 million. But his greatest legacy is the memory of a performer who dedicated his life to the BBC, to the stage, and to laughter, only to depart in a world that had gone eerily quiet. Gunter Meisner as Arthur Slugworth. Gunter Meisner portrayed Arthur Slugworth, the shadowy villain in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at the age of 45, with eyes sharp as knives and a chilling, unforgettable presence, a symbol of suspicion, control, and moral testing. But the real tragedy wasn't in the character he played, but in the life trapped behind that face. Born on April 18, 1926, in post-war Germany, Gunter carried the face of a villain, a typecast that condemned his entire career to roles as murderers, Nazi officers, and historical phantoms. In over 70 films, he was never allowed to cry, to love, or to show tenderness, because his appearance was deemed too cold and severe. He once became so desperate that he turned to painting just to express the sorrow he was never allowed to portray, covering his home in self-portraits of himself as a father, a teacher, a kind man, the roles Hollywood never gave him. He once bitterly wrote, "I am not a monster, but cinema taught me how to act so the world believes I am." Gunter Meisner died suddenly on December 5, 1994, at the age of 68, from heart failure, just before the taping of a small play he had recently accepted, the first role of his life that wasn't a villain. His estimated net worth was around $1.5 million. But tragically, his entire life had been confined within the eyes of an evil man, even though his heart belonged to someone who only wished to be loved, just once, on screen. Rusty Goff as Oompa Loompa. At age 23, Rusty Goff took on the role of one of the very first Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, with a white-painted face and signature green hair, delivering one of the most iconic and mystical musical sequences of childhood for generations. Born on October 30th, 1948, Rusty Goff was a man of both talent and limitations he never chose. His height led Hollywood to virtually typecast him into non-human roles for life, from a creature in Star Wars to a goblin in Harry Potter and countless physical comedy parts. He once said, "I was never allowed to be a normal person on screen." Behind the smiles and the makeup was a lifelong tragedy, being seen as entertainment rather than as a true actor. Though always cheerful at fan events, Rusty understood that he was part of an industry that needs you, but not to tell your story. His roles, memorable as they were, never allowed him to fully express who he was. Rusty Goff passed away on March 12, 2020, at the age of 72. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed, but family confirmed he had been frail for months. His estimated net worth was around $1 million. Within the cosplay and fantasy film community, he remains beloved as an icon. But perhaps the most beautiful moment happened backstage, when he once wore the Oompa Loompa costume again to visit a 5-year-old leukemia patient, singing Oompa Loompa Doompa Dee Doo with his own trembling voice. That, he said, was the most complete performance of his life. George Clayton as Oompa Loompa. At 38 years old, George Clayton played one of the Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. A visually strange and whimsical figure in the midst of chocolate dances and magical wonder. Born on September 4, 1933, in Bristol, England, Clayton was an actor living with dwarfism, a genetic condition that resulted in a shorter stature due to skeletal dysplasia. This often led to him being cast in roles as tiny people, unnamed or heavily costumed characters, such as the photographer in the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, 1967, Nickelbrick in Prince Caspian, 1989, or Hercules in I Don't Want to Be Born, 1975. Though he worked in the arts from 1963 to 1989, Clayton was rarely given roles with depth or emotional range. Industry records note that, at the time, actors with dwarfism were typically cast for visual novelty rather than as ordinary characters. George Clayton passed away on October 4, 2001, at the age of 68, at Charing Cross Hospital in London. His estimated net worth was around $500,000. In a rare photo from the World Cup Willy campaign, 1966, he stands quietly off stage, wearing a tilted fur hat, his eyes fixed in silent attention. That image became a symbol of an artist once invited onto the world stage, but rarely ever called by name. Nora Denny as Mrs. TV. Nora Denny played Mrs. TV, the anxious mother of Mike TV in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at the age of 44, a portrayal of the modern mother that was both humorous and concerned, expressed through every glance and lively line of dialogue. Born on September 3, 1927 in Kansas City, Missouri, under the birth name Dolores Teachener, Nora began her acting career in 1959 on local television before moving on to small roles in popular series such as Green Acres, Petticoat Junction, Bewitched, and Heart to Heart. Though she appeared in films like Splash, 1984, and The Trouble with Spies, 1987, she was consistently cast in short or unnamed supporting roles, often as a mother, nanny, or quirky middle-aged character. This reflected a professional struggle many older actresses faced. Despite their skill, they were often typecast into shallow roles, and Nora was one of them. Nora Denny passed away on November 20, 2005 at the age of 78 from cancer in Crestline, California. Her estimated net worth was around $700,000, mostly from her work in television and film. In a behind-the-scenes photo from Wonka, Nora stands beside the actor who played Mike TV, her eyes weary but still carrying the same grace she brought to her performance. Angelo Muscat as Oompa Loompa. At age 41, Angelo Muscat played one of the Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. His 130 cm, approximately 51 in frame, creating an unusual yet unforgettable figure in viewers' childhood memories. Born on September 24, 1930 in Malta, Angelo was an actor with dwarfism, standing about 130 centimeters tall. He was best known for his role as the short-statured butler in the British TV series The Prisoner, 1967, but was continually typecast into tiny character roles that lacked emotional depth. After Willy Wonka, his career declined rapidly. No new roles came his way, he faced financial hardship, and eventually lost his membership in the Actors Union. He lived alone in a basement apartment in London. Each day, Angelo sold handmade crafts at street markets, living quietly with the memory of once having lit up the screen, yet now lacking the platform to continue his path in the arts. Angelo Muscat died on October 10, 1977, at the age of 47, from what was described only as disease, a natural illness. His net worth was virtually negligible, estimated at around $100,000. When a group of fans visited the place where his legacy was once kept, the apartment contained only one photo: Angelo in his Oompa Loompa costume, standing next to another cast member, smiling, a hollow smile, yet one that still echoed in memory. Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka. At age 42, Johnny Depp took on the role of Willy Wonka in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, delivering an eccentric, eerie version that stood in stark contrast to Gene Wilder's iconic portrayal. With his short hair, bizarre voice, and hollow gaze, Depp's Wonka became a lightning rod for controversy, but also a testament to his artistic boldness as someone who always chose roles no one else dared to take. Johnny Depp was born on June 9, 1963, in Owensboro, Kentucky. He rose to global fame as Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean series, becoming one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. He also found success in films like Edward Scissorhands, Sweeney Todd, and Finding Neverland, and was nominated for the Academy Award 3 times. Yet behind the glamour were years of inner turmoil, stemming from childhood trauma, depression, and self-destructive habits. For years, Depp struggled with alcohol, drug addiction, and extravagant spending. He reportedly spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on wine, bodyguards, real estate, and even a cannon to shoot the ashes of his late friend, Hunter S. Thompson. These strange indulgences and his no-limits lifestyle left Depp financially and emotionally depleted. His divorce from Amber Heard, 2015 to 2017, triggered a storm of abuse allegations, lawsuits, and an unprecedented reputation crisis that led to his removal from Fantastic Beasts and the loss of his Jack Sparrow role. Shunned by Hollywood, Depp vanished from blockbuster films. He withdrew from the media spotlight and spent much of his time in France. It wasn't until Jean du Barry, 2023, that he made a comeback, not as a cinematic icon, but as a man trying to rise from the ashes. At age 62, Johnny Depp's estimated net worth is around $150 million, a fraction of his golden era. Peter Astramm as Charlie Bucket. At just 14 years old, Peter Astramm made film history playing Charlie Bucket in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. A poor, innocent boy full of compassion and honesty, Ostramm's character touched the hearts of millions and became a symbol of the fairy tale dream. Peter Astramm was born on November 1, 1957, in Dallas, Texas. After the film's release, the studio offered him a 3-picture deal, but he declined. Not out of failure or frustration, but because Peter didn't want fame. He chose to become a veterinarian, a path less visible but deeply meaningful. In 1984, he graduated from Cornell University and spent his career caring for horses, cows, and farm animals in New York State. Though he lived a peaceful life, Ostramm's tragedy was that career detour from Hollywood just as it could have soared. For more than 20 years, he avoided discussing Willy Wonka, declined interviews, took no further acting roles, and nearly disappeared from the entertainment world. Some believe he gave up a life-changing opportunity, but Ostramm himself once said it was The best decision I ever made. Documents later revealed he had felt immense pressure from sudden fame at a vulnerable age. Later on, Peter Astramm became more open, attending occasional cast reunions and veterinary events. He became a kind of silent icon, not for stardom, but for staying true to himself. At 68, he has a happy family with 2 children and an estimated net worth of $2 million. He may not be a millionaire movie star, but for Peter, choosing a simple life was the greatest victory a real-life Charlie Bucket could achieve. The dazzling lights of the chocolate factory were just a curtain hiding real-life pain behind the scenes. Which character moved you the most? Leave your comment below and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss more haunting behind-the-scenes stories like these.